Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel, Stewart Paintings. On today's Ocean Sunset Oil Painting tutorial, we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset beach oil painting. I'm going to teach you how to create clouds and how to paint realistic light effects on your clouds, how to blend a ocean water and use highlights and shadows to create realism, how to put detail over the top to create a realistic ocean wave so you can paint this gorgeous beach oil painting. So let's get into it. So for the painting tutorial, you're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, Naples yellow, cad red light, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, dioxazine purple, Prussian blue, raw umber and matte black. Now I have a burnt sienna paint canvas that I've put an outline on. I've just got the horizon in the middle of the canvas. It's an A4 canvas. We're going to have a big wave here in the foreground. We're going to have a beach and we're going to have some wash. We're going to have some cliff tops on the right hand side, which I'll teach you how to paint distance, and then we're going to have a low setting sun. We're going to have some really realistic greys today. We're going to create this nice color and we're going to have a nice bright white sun. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to get a clean brush and just pure titanium white, and we're just going to block in a light source. So this is going to be our sun, and what we're going to do is we're just going to gradually create a light effect just using plain titanium white. Now a lot of you, I do acrylic painting tutorials all the time, and I wanted to branch out and do some more oil painting tutorials. I'm still going to do acrylic painting tutorials, so don't worry everyone. But today we're going to focus on oil paints. So I'm going to mix some white and I'm going to use some of this Naples yellow. Now Naples yellow is just a creamy buttery colour yellow. So you can, if you don't have Naples yellow, you can make it from just adding titanium white and then a little bit of cad yellow and a dot of black. So titanium white, a little dot of cad yellow and literally a pinprick of black, and you can make this sort of butter colour. And all we're going to do is just going to blend it around our light source, which is the sun, and we're just going to go around like a circle around it. So all we're doing, we're just gently blending the colours together, and we're just leaving that plain bright white, and that's going to be the setting sun. So we're going to create a background sky first and blend it into our light source. So we're going to create some cobalt blue into the mix, and a tiny bit of the dioxazine purple, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and a little dot of black, just a pinprick, and we're going to make a nice warm grey. So if you mix that into your Naples yellow that you just created, and you should get this nice warm grey. Now we're going to paint really realistic tones today, but first we just want to blend everything together and we just want to gauge the colours. So all we're doing, we're trying to create a background sky, and then what we'll do is we'll put things like the detail and the clouds over the top, and we'll do the same with the ocean. So all we're trying to do is block everything in. So we're going to create a background sky. So I'm using a tiny bit of liquid. I'm using water-based oil paints today because I hate solvents, so I tend not to use anything with chemicals. So all we're doing is we're mixing lots and lots of titanium white and a tiny bit of cerulean blue. So I'm just adding little bits of cerulean blue just so I get the nice sort of pastel blue colour. So predominantly titanium white and a little bit of cerulean blue, and we'll start blocking in our sky. And all we're going to do is just try to cover up our burnt sienna and just block in the top left hand corner. So oil paints are fantastic for blending. They look really realistic, but they are a lot harder to use because they dry so slow. It's really hard to add detail and things over the top. But if you're a beginner and you're just learning, they are fantastic to create realism because the colours look so realistic because of their oily sheen. So we're going to do lots of oil painting tutorials, but don't worry if you follow the channel and you've bought lots of equipment, because obviously we do acrylic painting tutorials, we're still going to do lots of acrylic painting tutorials as well. I'm going to do both. So people who are new to the channel, who have come here for the oil painting, we're going to do lots of oil painting tutorials, and everyone else who's previously been here and follows me each week with an acrylic painting tutorial, we're still going to do lots of acrylic painting tutorials, so don't worry. I want to teach both because I want to show you the pros and cons of both types of paint. So look, all I'm doing is blocking in our sky. I'm just gently blending it into the Naples yellow, and I'm just trying to cover up any of the burnt sienna underneath. Now you don't have to paint on a burnt sienna canvas, I just find it easier because it shows me where I've missed areas where I want to fix bits of my work. So I'm going to get some of that Naples yellow, and I'm going to get some white. I'm just going to create that sort of creamy buttery colour that we created earlier, and I'm just going to glaze this area and just gently blend it into the cerulean blue. So just sort of wisping my brush back and forth, creating little X shapes, and I'm just making it look nice and blended. So I've got hardly any pressure pushing down. I'm just blending all this together just to make a nice background wispy sky. And I'm just taking some cerulean blue, now it's a little bit drier, and I'm just making that corner a tiny shade darker. I've just added a tiny bit more cerulean blue to the mix just to make that left hand corner nice and dark. And I'm just going to load up my brush again, and I'm just going to do the same over here on the right. So I'm just trying to get rid of any streaks so I can see the burnt sienna shining through. And I'm just using a tiny little bit more cerulean blue, just a tiny shade more cerulean blue with the white, just to make areas just a little bit darker. And that's all blocked in. So we've got this light source with the white, and we've got this lovely pastel Naples yellow, and then we're just going to create some heat around the sun. So we're going to take some cad red light and some cad yellow, so we're going to mix the two together, so cad red light and cad yellow, and we're just going to make this sort of golden yellow colour, so more yellow than anything. We're going to add a tiny dot of purple and a dot of raw umber. Now purple and raw umber, believe it or not, are really good for making things look natural. So by adding it to your yellow and red, you can make things look more natural and realistic. So we're just going to get a dot of black, just add it to the mix just to suck a little bit of the colour out. So we've got yellow, red, tiny bit of purple and a tiny bit of brown and a dot of black, and we should create this lovely sort of warm tan sort of colour. So nice sort of warm purpley yellowy brown, I guess. And all we're going to do, we're going to create the highlights on the clouds. So we're going to create the warm areas on our clouds, and then we'll put the darks over the top. So we're just going to come right down to the horizon. And we're just going to come right up to our ocean cliffs. And all we're trying to do, we're just trying to create sort of low sitting clouds. So if you imagine our sunset, these are all the sort of clouds. They're just coming around our light source, just wisping off into the distance. So the great thing is with this colour, and we've got the previous Naples yellow underneath, if you lay this colour on top and just push gently down, it will blend. And what that should do is just make it look like it's lighter around the sun. So just by adding that colour around into the Naples yellow, because we've already laid the Naples yellow and the paint is wet, unlike acrylics, it's still wet, you can blend it really nicely together, and it just gives it a lot lighter effect, and it looks like these areas are getting a little bit of sun and they're not as harsh. So we're just going to go right up into the corner, And we're just going to make all this dark. I'm going to have quite a harsh cloud in the right hand side, so I'm just going to leave that area. I'm just going to put a few clouds there, so you can have some just wisping off into the distance. So by just gently going over the top, you can just blend it into that cerulean blue. And just try not to have any harsh edges. So by using soft brushes, you can just push the colours together and they just look a lot more smoother. Now we're going to get a little bit more of a shadow colour now. So we're going to make purple and blue. So we're going to add purple and cobalt blue. A tiny bit of raw umber, so a bit of brown. So purple, blue, raw umber and a dot of black. So we're going to make this really dark shadow colour, but it's very, very harsh. We're going to add plenty of white to that colour. And we're just going to make a little bit more blue, a little bit more cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is fantastic for cooling things down, and purple and brown, just adding a bit of purple and brown to the mix, are really, really good just to make it look more earthy and natural. So we've got this sort of cool bluey grey, and all I'm going to do, I'm just going to block in my right hand corner because I want to be, this could be a quite harsh sort of rain cloud in the top corner, and by having dark corners it just makes the painting look nice and framed. So I'm just going to tiny bit more brown, dot of black, tiny bit more brown, and a tiny bit of white. There we go, just to make it a little bit lighter and a little bit grayer. And I'm just going to come down and just blend that into the mix. So there we go. So just like we did with the previous colour, we're just going to blend it into this light brown, and we're just leaving little gaps, and these are all the sort of breaks in the cloud, just bits of sunlight poking through. So all we're doing, we're just gently blending it into the previous tone, but this tone's not as harsh. So when it's around the sun, if I zoom in for you, it won't look so harsh, because the dark colour we've used in the top right, this colour is a lot less harsh. So these are all the areas that are getting sunlight and they're creating a shadow, but the shadow is not so harsh because obviously the sun is so blaring. So by just smoothing it into the previous colours, into the maple yellow and that nice tan colour, we can just create the illusion of clouds. So just gently blending it all together. Go a tiny bit coming up here towards the sun. And just coming off to the left here. So what that does is, now we've got the darker colour, can you see how the yellow and the tan colour sort of peeking through it kind of creates sort of the glow effect, kind of looks like sunlight coming around it. So by just having this really nice sort of warm grey, we can just create the sort of rain clouds, and by leaving gaps and letting some of that orangey tan colour and that obviously Naples yellow, just gently blending it, we can just create the illusion that it's just fading off into the distance. Now this area is a little bit too harsh, but I like the light grey, I like the way it's pushed back. We don't want to make a colour too harsh and bring it forward. So we're just going to mix some of that grey into our cerulean blue and white. And I'm just going to turn my brush sideways, and I'm just going to have some more clouds here, just really subtly, you can barely notice them, just mixing it into the cerulean blue just here on the left. So again, it's just creating little marks just to give the implication of little clouds off in the distance. Just add in some clouds here. Again, just smoothing everything together, just nice and blended. Could have some more just up here in the light. Just make it look a little bit harsher. There we go. So it's all starting to take shape. So we've got this lovely light source and we've got this dark area. We're just going to add a little bit more heat. So we're going to use some cad red and some cad yellow. And a little bit of our Naples yellow just to make it less harsh. So reds, yellows and oranges are perfect for heat, and blue, purples are great for shadows. So we'll just add a little bit of purple to the mix, just a tiny bit of purple. You can create this really nice warm sort of yellow ochre, but it's still very orangey. It's still got a little bit of purple in it. We've got a little bit of white, and we're just going to add some heat. So this is just all the sort of sky that's just getting a little bit of sunlight. So all around the sun. So we're just going to have that underneath the sun. And then we just go get some Naples yellow and some white. Tiny bit of brown, and we're just going to create a beige colour, and we're just going to poke some holes in the sky again just to create the illusion of light shining through. So what that does is it makes the reddy sort of colours look like clouds that are getting some sunlight and they're keeping them nice and warm, and by poking sort of the Naples yellow it just creates a sort of illusion of light coming through the cerulean blue, and just as the sun is setting you just get all these lovely sort of mixtures of colours. So we want our background to be really pastel. We don't want anything harsh because we want to set it really back into the distance. So we don't want to make any of these clouds really dark, or we don't want to make any of our highlights extremely bright, because then it would bring it forward. So all I'm doing, I'm just using that beige, which is a shade darker than the Naples yellow, just to sort of frame it. So it just makes it look like the light around the sun is more vibrant, and it just makes the sky look a little bit darker as it fades out. So while we've got that beige, what you can do is you can just gently go around some of your clouds and just give them a sort of highlighted edge. So all I'm doing, I'm just going around the bottom of the clouds just so it looks like they're getting a bit of sunlight, and then I can poke holes in this area again just to give the clouds some texture. So just poking some holes in the larger cloud just gives it a little bit of texture and just looks like some of the sunlight poking through. So we're going to get some purple and cobalt blue and some brown. So purple, cobalt blue and brown. There's a dot of black and plenty of white. So we're going to make a cooler grey now. So purple, blue, a little bit of brown, dot of black and plenty of white. And we're just going to make a harsher, cooler grey. And we're just going to make areas that aren't getting as much sunlight just a bit harsher. But we're just going to gently blend it into the previous colours. So if you imagine these are all the sort of cloud areas that are getting a little bit of a silhouette because they're not getting as much sunlight. They're fading off into the distance, and as the sun sets they're just getting a little bit darker. So all we're doing, we're just creating little shapes. These could be little floating clouds, and obviously this area is a little bit further away now from the sunlight. But we don't want to add lots of dark paint, because look, if I add really dark colours and not blend it, it brings it forward, it brings it closer towards the viewer. So we want to have this nice and quite detailed, but we don't want it very dark. So we want to gently blend it into the previous colours, keep it very pastel, and that keeps it far off into the background. So I'm just trying to create shapes of clouds. So just by using a harsher shade, a darker shade, you can just add little bits of detail, just the implications of sort of clouds that aren't getting as much sunlight, just casting sort of a darker shadow. So if you think this area over here is not going to be getting as much sun, it's going to be a little bit darker. And down here in the corner. So I'm just gently blending it all together. I don't want any harsh edges. So look, if I create a harsh edge like now, I just want to smooth it into the Naples yellow. I don't want to have anything super harsh. So as I say, oil paints are fantastic for realism, but they are harder to use. You've got to be more patient. And you've got to watch your hand doesn't go in them and you smear your work. So I'm just adding some little darker shades just on areas that wouldn't be getting as much sunlight, and they cast a darker shadow. Just blending it all together. So just some little areas of the clouds that just aren't getting as much sun. And if I zoom in for you so you can get a closer look, there's no real detail on this painting. It's all in the colours. So we're going to get some brown and blue, so some raw umber and some cobalt blue, a little bit of black, plenty of white, so blue, brown, a little bit of black and some white. I'm going to make it an even darker grey now. So an even harsher grey, and we're just going to come in and darken up our corners. So again, we're just making little gaps just to add texture, by leaving gaps in between some of the previous colours to shine through. It just gives the added texture of the clouds. The same here on this corner. It just frames the painting. Just have some little floater ones that are just a bit harsher. So it just looks like it's fading off into the distance, and the same here. Just going to make these areas a little shade darker. And then we're just going to get some cad yellow and plenty of white. So cad yellow and plenty of white. A little bit of the Naples yellow and a little bit more white just to make it look more highlighty and vibrant. We're going to make a really sort of striking, bright, buttery yellow colour. So I'm going to load up my brush. And just like we poked holes in the sky with the cloud in the top right, we're just going to blend some of this light now and just give a little bit of highlights around some of the clouds. So again, I'm just poking some holes. You can even have some sunbeams. You can have some little diagonal lines coming through. This could be the sunlight sort of beaming up through the clouds. So I'm just creating some sunbeams. Just putting some highlights around this area just to make it look really vibrant. So this is all the sort of sunlight peeking out and highlighting some clouds. Just putting some gaps. Have some gaps under there where the light is coming through these clouds. Just down here. So the Naples yellow is fantastic for poking holes in your clouds, just to give it clear definition in the sky. So if you want to add just sort of little gaps, you can, just using the Naples yellow. And what you can do as well is you can outline sort of the bottom of your cloud, sort of give it a nice sort of outline at its base, and that looks like some of the sunlight is hitting the underneath of the cloud and just giving it a nice realistic glow. So we've just got some of this sort of bright yellow just coming out, just peeking out, just so the transitions are super smooth. And any areas where we've done the sunbeams or anything, I just want to use the previous colours, so I can use some of that nice grey, or I can use the Naples yellow to poke holes. I just want everything nice and smooth. I want all the transitions really subtle, just to create the realism. If you think of nature, you won't ever notice any transitions because nature is absolutely perfect. So that I'm just, with a dry brush, I'm just smoothing over areas, just glazing over it, just glossing it, and that's starting to look fantastic. So I love the fact that it's pushed back, and I love the pastel colours. So what we're going to work on now is we're going to work on the light effect on the cliffs and the light effect on our ocean water, and we're going to bring the wave towards us. So let's do the cliffs first. So we've done the background sky, so we want to bring these cliffs a little bit closer to the viewer. We want to have this one pushed back and this one a little bit closer to create depths. So I'll teach you that now. So we'll create a far away cliff first and a closer cliff. So we're going to get some cobalt blue and brown, so cobalt blue and raw umber, plenty of white, so cobalt blue, raw umber and plenty of white. So we're just going to mix that all together, and we should get this nice dark colour. Going to add a tiny bit of purple to the mix, a little bit more white, and we should have this nice dark colour. Now while we've got the paint on our brush, we're going to get some white, and we're just going to smear it to the side here and add a little bit more cobalt blue and just make a lighter version. So we've got a dark version that we've mixed, and then we've just taken that paint, moved it over here, add a little bit more white and a little bit of cobalt blue. And all I'm going to do is just block in this far off mountainous cliff. Now the reason we use cobalt blue is fantastic for putting something into the far distance. So by using blues you can make something look far away and make it look far off into the distance. So that's our far cliff, so that's nice and far away. And then we've got a closer cliff, so we're going to use that dark mix that we just previously mixed, which has a little bit more black. Let's put a little tiny bit more black in, and we're just going to make this cliff a little bit harsher. You won't notice it until you step back a bit. It's just going to make it a little bit darker, just a bit more into the foreground, coming closer to the viewer. So we've got these two cliffs, and all we're going to do, we're going to add a bit more brown to the mix and a tiny bit of purple, and we're just going to make it a little bit darker here. So I'm just zoomed in for you so you can see. We're just going to make this cliff a little bit nearer, so we're using browns and blues and purples to bring it closer towards the viewer, and lighter blues to push the other one further back. We're just gently blending them in, just again so the transitions just look really smooth. And then we're going to get some Naples yellow and a little bit of purple and some white to create a really sort of nice yellowy purpley colour. And all we're going to do is just gently blend that over the top, just so it looks like the light is just hitting that far away mountain, and because the light is quite yellow, it just all blends into that blue and just creates the realism. So there you go, you've got these two mountains, one further back with a lighter shade and one a little bit darker that brings it closer to the viewer. So look, one's lighter and one's darker, and it just creates the realism. No detail, just with colours. So now we're going to do the same with the ocean. We're going to bring our ocean wave towards the beach, and we're going to create fantastic light effect. So the first thing we're going to do is just load up our brush with titanium white. So with an ocean sunset, if you imagine that the sun is super white and it's shining down onto our seawater. So what we're going to do is just use titanium white and come directly down underneath the sun. So all I'm doing, I'm just going in between the waves. All I did, by the way, was use acrylic paint just to create an outline. Now acrylics dry super quick, so you can just create an outline, dry it with a hairdryer, and then when you paint oils over the top like I'm doing now, it doesn't matter, it's not going to blend. We're not going to get any of that burnt sienna mixing in with the white, so the white still looks super vibrant. So all I'm trying to do is match the light. So if you imagine that light is coming from that setting sun and shining down onto our gleaming water. Now this is going to be a wave, but all I want to do is I just want to block in, just like we did with the sky, the same sort of colours. So do you remember we used the Naples yellow? And we made that creamy yellow, so we added plenty of white around the sun. And all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to gently blend that either side to match the sunlight. So just how it is in the sky, we're trying to match on the ocean water. So look, all we're doing on the left hand side, we're just gently blending it in. It's what's so great about oil paints, they're so easy to blend. So look, just getting some, just blending into that white. The same here on the right hand side. Want everything to match. So there we go. Easy peasy, super easy this is. So as you can see, it's getting dark either side of the sun. So look, the gradient in the sky goes a bit bluer, it goes a bit darker. So we want to do the same either side on our ocean. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix a colour first that's a bit darker. So we're going to mix some purple, some cobalt blue, a dot of black, some brown and plenty of white, and you should get another warm grey. So just like we did with the clouds, do you remember we made that lovely sort of purpley grey for our clouds above? We're just going to mix that up again. So look, same colour as the clouds, and we're just going to block in the corners of our painting. Now anyone who watches all the acrylic painting tutorials, why do we always block in our corners and make them nice and dark? Well, the reason we do that is so you focus down the middle towards the light. So we want everyone to look at our setting sun and the sort of glimmer on our ocean, and to make the glimmer look so vibrant, we've got to make our corners nice and sort of dark to make you focus down the middle. So all we're going to do is just gently blend these corners. So don't worry if you go over your outline, we're going to make them in oil paint later. And I just want to do the same. I can gently blend it into this Naples yellow. So I just want to do the same. I want to make my corners nice and dark so I get that lovely sort of light effect, and also it just frames the composition, it frames our painting. And it just looks like the sunlight matches the sky. So take your time, relax, just gently blend the colours together. So just ease up on the pressure, pushing down onto your canvas, and just gently blend. So all I do is create X shapes, so just go back and forth, back and forth. Okay? So we've got a big jump between the Naples yellow and that sort of purpley colour. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a sky colour. So we're going to get lots and lots of white, a dab of cobalt blue, and predominantly cerulean blue, a dot of purple, and a dot of brown. And we're just going to make a really light pastel blue, a bit like our sky, but it's just got a hint of brown in it. And all we're going to do, we're just going to blend it. So again, it all matches. Blend it into that previous colour. So look, with blending, if you want to put a big block of paint, watch. If you want to mix it together, you just create little X shapes and you just ease up on the pressure. But look, if I push down, a lot of paint's going to come up. But if I ease back and hardly touch the canvas at all, it's so easy to blend. So look, all I do is I just ease back and forth. Look, just hardly touch the canvas and just blend it into the previous colours. And if I want to block an area in, I just push down heavily with my brush and just block it in and just ease up on the pressure just to blend it. So that I push down hard and then I just release it and just create X shapes and it should just blend. I hope that makes sense. So look, we're just trying to match the light. So we're creating this underpainting, and then when we add the waves over the top, that will trick the eye because the transitions look so smooth. Think of Carlos Santana, I'm smooth. So we're just trying to match the light here on the right hand side. So then just tiny bit of that blue. So once your underpainting is nice and blended and we've got this lovely light effect in the ocean, we're just going to match this top dark colour that we made earlier, which was cobalt blue, purple, brown and black, and a little bit of white. So cobalt blue, the purple, some raw umber and black, and we should get the same colour that we had in the top right hand corner, which is a little bit more bluer. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of brown to it just to make it a bit darker. All we're going to do, again, we're just going to frame the painting. We're just going to make this corners a little bit darker. So I want the shimmer in the middle to be what people focus on. So I need to make the areas either side of it darker. But it's the same trick as what we just did before with the blending. All I'm doing, I'm just pushing down in the far corners just to create lots of paint. And then I'm just gently easing up on the pressure and just gradually brushing it into the previous colours. Just so, again, the transitions are lovely and smooth. And it should look like a shimmer in the water now. Should have created a nice ocean with this lovely glimmer. So now we're going to put the waves on top. So we're going to get Prussian blue. Now Prussian blue is a posh way of saying black and cobalt blue, but all the Prussian blue is black and cobalt blue. So you can, if you don't have it at home, just add plenty of black and cobalt blue together and you should get this lovely dark blue. If you swap over to a flat brush, it's really easy just to turn your brush sideways and just create sort of wiggly straight lines that create the illusion of the shadow of a wave. So look, all you do is just use the edge of the brush and you can just create wiggly, don't make them too straight. So we want to create sort of the illusion of a wave. Now for some reason it's a little bit too blue, so what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of purple and brown to the mix and a little bit more black. So there we go, just take out that blue, it's just a little bit too blue. I'm just going to go either side, excuse me. So what we're doing, we're trying to create the illusion of the water coming up towards the beach. So we've got our lovely sunset. So now we're trying to create some waves. So this is all the sort of shadows. So as the water rides up towards the beach, you get all these sort of dark shadows underneath the wave. So what we're going to do is just outline them. Now I'm going to leave a gap in the middle. Now the reason I'm going to leave a gap in the middle is because I'm going to use a lighter shade to make it look like the sunlight is coming down from the sun. So I'm using the dark either side, but I'm leaving a gap in the middle. So just take your time, use the edge of the brush and just try to create straight lines that are just a little bit wiggly, and these look like the caps of far off waves. So a flat brush, you can pick them up in the store for like $1, £1. They're so cheap and they're fantastic for just creating little divots in your water just to create the illusion of waves. So can you see now we're adding the waves over the top. Can you see now how just spending that 5 minutes creating the underpainting with the shimmer, now we're adding the waves over the top. That's tricking your eye and that's creating the realism. So just like we did with the sky, where you put the sky on first and then you put the cloud detail, we just do the same technique with our ocean water. So I'm just creating little divots with this colour just to create the illusion of waves. I'm just going to make the bottom darker. So if you imagine this is going to be all sand, and we're staring out looking at the setting sun, so this is going to be very, very dark, almost silhouetted. So I'm just going to make it a bit darker with this colour. So I'm just going to block that in, and then if I zoom in for you now, we're going to get some brown and some cad red light. So brown and cad red light. So we're going to add heat to it. So we're going to add some cad yellow and Naples yellow. And a little bit of purple. And we're going to make a really nice sort of burnt sienna sort of colour. But it's still got a hint of purple in it. So just a little bit of white. And if you imagine underneath the sun, these waves are going to be catching the sunlight. So by creating a bit of heat, by adding the reds and the yellows and creating a more sort of burnt sienna purpley colour, it just again matches the light. It just creates this illusion that these waves, these caps of waves, are getting the sunlight. So just by using a lighter colour and then just merging it into the Prussian blue either side, again it just matches the shimmer and looks more realistic. And while we've got that colour, we can again just blend it into the previous darker Prussian blue. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just blending it either side. So because it's a bit warmer, because obviously it's got a bit of that cad red and yellow in it, again warmer colours imply heat, so it just looks like the sunlight is just warming up this area of the sand. And as it gets cooler, by using blues and purples, like here in the corners, we can just make these areas look darker and more in the shade. So it's just learning how to use cool tones to create shadow and warm tones to create highlights. And where you've got transitions, can you see there's a big transition in the sand? Look, just go over the top and just make them smoother. So just take your time, relax. You can always pause this video. You don't have to keep up and paint it all in 1 hour. You can take your time. So look, we're just going to have more heat by adding more red and yellow. So more heat, red and yellow, to create the heat. Just added to our previous mix, and just around this area almost create a sort of orangey colour. We're just going to make this area of the sand look like it's getting lots of sunlight. A little bit more red, why not? And we're just going to blend it all together. So again, it just all matches. And a little bit down here on the side, I'm just going to brush just gradually, just blending it here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to load up my brush with the colour, and I'm just going to use the very tip of the corner of the brush, so the left hand corner, and I'm just going to push down. I'm just going to create little divots, just like we did in the far off distance, but I'm just going to create little divots. I'm leaving little gaps in between, so just little wiggly lines. And again, it's just to give the texturization of the water. So look, just little divots, just using the corner of the brush, just little wiggly lines. I'll zoom in for you in a minute just so you can have a look. So look, there's not much detail. Look, so I'm just loading up my brush. I'm just using the very corner of the left-hand corner, just the very edge. And look, I'm just creating little thin little divots. You can use a fine liner if you want to. If you want to use just a thin brush, I just find it easier with these flat brushes. So look, all I'm just doing is just creating little divots. We'll just blend into the Naples yellow. I don't want to make them too harsh, but it's just to imply detail. As I say, I don't want to go super photorealistic with this painting, as it's an easy tutorial. But you don't need much detail. And then what you can do is you can add a little bit of the darker tone, so the colour we use for the sand, and you can do the same trick either side. So just more of a purpley bluey tone, just again to match the light, and put some divots either side. So even the divots, if you can see, are cooler on the left and the right hand side, and they're warmer underneath the sun. So even the highlights and the shadows all match the transitions. And if we've done it on one side, you can do it on the other side. You can even put some in your far away water. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just creating really thin lines just to give the impression of caps of waves. So again, no detail, just really subtle. Obviously we're zoomed in here on the video, but if you take a step back you won't even notice it. But what it does is, again, it's just little tricks of the trade that just create the realism. Okay, so then we're just going to get some cobalt blue, some cerulean blue, and a little bit of purple. So cobalt blue, cerulean blue, purple. Just going to mix a nice cool blue. We're going to add some white to the mix. A little bit more cerulean blue. What we're trying to do, a little dot of black. We're just trying to create a nice cool colour in the shade. So adding purples and cerulean blue, a little bit of brown, just to make it more earthy and natural. We're trying to create a nice blue that's in the shade, and we're going to create the wash of our ocean waves. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white, just so it's not as harsh. So there we go, that's perfect. And what we're going to do is we're just going to block in our wave. So I'm going to leave a tiny gap just at the top, just let some of that white and that light Naples yellow shine through. So I'm just leaving a tiny gap between the outline, and what that does, again, it just creates the illusion of highlights. So it just makes it look like some of the sunlight is sparkling on top of the water. And in these areas that I've got, they're sort of back to the sun, I'm just going to block in and just make them look nice and dark. So if you imagine all this wash has got its back to the sun, but they're very top, just getting a little bit of that sunlight. So that's what I was saying, just to leave a little gap. And then we're just blocking this corner here. That's more in the shades, it's a bit cooler. And you can see, just look from the colours, how real that looks. We haven't put any detail, it's just sheer colours. So it's just knowing your colours. And then what you can do is you can match the warm tone and the dark tone that we made earlier. And you can just come round over the top, just using a fine liner, and you can make it look like your wave is crashing into the shore. So look, all I'm doing is just, again, there's no super detail. I'm just creating the illusion of texture by just creating little blobs. Look, so underneath I'm just creating little divots just to make it look all sort of wonky and bits of water sort of splashing together. I just don't want a flat wave. So look, I'm just putting little divots just randomly, and again that just creates the illusion of texture. So just like we did with the wave, I'm just using the dark colour underneath. So Prussian blue and a little bit of brown. So just put my divots, and then we're just going to use that hot colour. Do you remember with the red and the yellow that we used for the waves? And we're just going to merge that into the middle. So just like we did, look, with the waves, I'm just going to make it a little bit darker, just so it looks a bit nicer. So again, just by using hot colours, you can imply heat from the sun. So let's just have a few divots here and caps of waves. So again, look, there's no detail. It's the colours, the magic of colours that tricks the eye. So it's the same trick over and over again. It's just reworking areas with warmer colours to imply the light and the heat from the sun, and darker colours either side to imply some shade and the coolness. So all we're doing is just creating these divots. As I say, you can add some detail. I don't want to go too photorealistic because obviously it's an easy tutorial. Just want people to learn the basics. But you don't have to, as I say, you don't have to be super talented to create realism. It's the colours. So look, I just want a nice firm dark outline, just so that sort of carpet of water looks like it's coming up onto the beach. And I'm just going to join this wave up. Again, just making it a little bit darker, so my shimmer takes center stage. So all I'm doing is I'm using the colour that we used in the top right hand corner, that sort of really dark cool grey. So that was black, blue, purple and brown, and a tiny bit of white. And again, just making these divots in the foreground. If you imagine, the shadows are going to be really silhouetted and really harsh here. Just little dots to create detail. Take your time. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of black and blue to that mix. A little bit of purple. Again, just gradually darken up the corners. So as I say, sometimes with painting you just have to go back and forth and see what works. So this area here on the left, this obviously the sun is towards the right. It's not in the center, obviously, it's to the right. So I just want to make the left hand side a little bit more darker. So what I'm doing, I'm just glazing over the top with that colour. It's a little bit scruffy because I'm using a fine liner. We'll blend it in a minute. But I'm just glazing over the top, just sort of colouring it in almost. So I'm just, don't worry about the splodges, that's just the texture from the brush. I'll use a smoother brush in a minute and blend it. So look, if I just get a larger brush, you can just gradually blend it. No one would notice. There we go. Just take away some of those splodges. So there's a lot of, I keep saying to you, a lot of being a good artist is knowing your tools, and knowing what brushes to use to make things easier for you. So that's looking fantastic. So now we're just going to go back to our blending. So we're just, as I say, just gradually making sure all our transitions look really, really nice. And then just where we've blended it, where we're just going over the top here, we've smoothened areas, so some of our waves don't look as harsh. So all we're doing, look, we're just reworking it. We're just getting that Prussian blue and a little bit of the raw umber, and with the edge we're just going to make these areas just a bit harsh and darker. So we're just going to make these shadows a bit darker because these are close to the viewer. So by using the dark colours we can bring it forward so it looks like it's close to the viewer. So if we do it on one side, we're just going to match it on the other side. So again, we've saved our darkest darks to the foreground. And you can even look, you can just use this colour just to put some texture in the beach. You can make some bubbles, little stones and pebbles, maybe some footprints if you wanted to. So we're just using the darkest darks to bring that closer to the viewer. We're just going to put some waves in, why not? So these waves are getting hardly any sunlight. They're going to be extremely dark, almost silhouetted. And if you get a harsh colour, look, you can just smudge it. Baby wipes are brilliant for oil paint. So if you're using oil paints, have a pack of baby wipes handy, and if you get any paint on your fingers or anything, you can just wipe it off straight away. So look, either side. Oops, that one was a bit too diagonal. You want your waves pretty flat. So look, if you made them diagonally like me, it looks a bit wonky. So let's just make it a little bit flatter. There we go. Just put some divots here in the foreground. I'm just going to get some titanium white, and I'm just going to put some highlights just here on the water. So again, it's just some of the shimmer of that light cascading onto our water. So again, it's just to emphasize that. All I'm doing, I'm literally just putting some dots of white, some little shimmer here just on the bottom. So again, these are just all the little finishing touches, maybe even a little sunbeam. That just using titanium white just to soften areas, just so it looks like some of the sunlight is beaming through the clouds. There's some little sunbeams coming up here, why not? So I'm just going to get pure titanium white, just come out from the centre. Just really subtle, as I say, just little finishing touches. And I'm just going to make this area a tiny bit darker, just for that dark shadow colour we just used for the waves. I'm just going to blend it in so it's not as harsh. Again, just using the darker colour just to bring it forward a bit more. Just into the foreground. Again, here just in the corners, just to frame the painting. Just give it a nice clean edge. Just go around these sunbeams, just so the sunbeams stands out a little bit more. And then, just because we haven't got really any clouds here on the left hand side, I'm just going to darken up this area here and just make these ones a little bit more dark because they're getting less sun. Let's just have some little ones here fading off, again just to frame the painting. And let's just have some coming here. So if you get a harsh edge, just smooth it in. You don't want to bring it forward. You don't want anything too harsh, because that would be just like the waves and it will bring it closer towards the viewer. So even if you want to imply shade, don't use too darks. So look, that's way too dark. You want to add a little bit of white, or do my professional trick and just use your finger and smear it. So you want to add plenty of white to the mix, because you still want it very pastel, and set that background back into the distance. So look, just blending it and just add a little bit of white. There we go. Just have a little dinky cloud in the background. And I think she's pretty much done. I think she's pretty finished. Just go over the top. And that will do, I think. So I haven't signed her because she's still wet, but she looks fantastic. So you've learned how to paint a sunset over the ocean. You've learned how to paint clouds. We've got our nice darkened corners. We've got a lovely sunlight and light source to look out with. You've got the glimmer on your ocean water. We've learned how to do the underpainting, and then how to use colours to bring your waves closer towards the viewer. You've learned how to have a focus point, how to do a beach, and you've painted this gorgeous sunset beach oil painting. So thank you so much for tuning into this latest tutorial. My name is Murray. We have plenty of painting tutorials on my channel. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I hope you all look after yourselves and take care, and see you next time for another tutorial. Bye now.